So, about the game. Tomb Raider, the very first one, came out in '96. It came out for the PlayStation, the Sega Saturn, and the PC version. Now, I played the PC version, and it is a pretty solid port, but the two I would definitely recommend going with is the console versions. Now, I played both for the console, as in the PlayStation, and the Sega Saturn, and it does seem that in this game, the Saturn has a slight advantage. Now, if you play the PlayStation version, you'll notice that all the pieces of graphics that are layered onto the wireframe, you notice that you can actually see the lines in between them, whereas on the Saturn version it is less obvious. Plus with the Saturn version there's less popping or image tearing. It's a lot more stable version, I think. But if truth be told, even if this wasn't the best version, I still would have got the Saturn version, mainly because I'm a Sega fanboy, and if a game or a particular series comes out on a Sega console, I will get that no matter what. Now, normally when I review a game, I have to try to find the audio. Now, sometimes it can be easy, sometimes it can be difficult, or sometimes I have to actually rip the audio while I'm playing the game. Every game's different, but I always try to find a way to grab music from that game and use in the review. Now, the good thing about this game is that it uses Redbook audio. What that means is that the audio in this game, pretty much most of it, is done the same way that an audio disc is done, which makes it extremely easy because you can just pop this into your computer, you can pretty much rip all the music off, and you can just splice it into your video, which makes life a lot easier. But with later games on CDs, that wouldn't be the case. Now, the main reason for this is, you think about it, right? WAV files are pretty big files, right? On an audio CD you can get about 70 minutes, but by using some basic form of compression you can get far more audio. Not just that, but you've also got far more room for game data as well. But I'm getting a little bit off topic. But my point I was trying to make is that while I was grabbing the audio for this, I was listening through to find good tracks to use, and I was totally mesmerised. The audio in this game is absolutely blooming fantastic. It's got such atmosphere to it. Just closing your eyes and listening to it, it's just such an intense feeling. Just for the audio alone, it's worth taking a moment just to listen. So, the thing about Tomb Raider and the Tomb Raider games is Lara's story, her origin story, has been retold several times, namely in the game series and in the movie series. But let's go back to the source, let's go back to the very first game, and what better way to explain about Lara Croft than the manual. So, let's have a look. Let's see. Introduction. Lara Croft, daughter of Lord Hemsley Croft, was raised to be an aristocrat from birth. After attending finishing school at the age of 21, Laura's marriage into wealth had seemed assured, but on her way home from a skiing trip, her chartered plane had crashed deep into the heart of the Himalayas. The only survivor, Laura, learned how to depend on her wits to stay alive in a hostile conditions a world away from her sheltered upbringing. 2 weeks later, when she walked into the village of Takakakak, whatever it's called, her experiences had had a profound effect on her. Unable to stand the claustrophobic, suffocating atmosphere of upper-class British society, she realised that she was only truly alive when travelling alone. Over the following 8 years, she acquired an immense knowledge of ancient civilizations across the globe. Her family soon disowned their prodigal daughter, and she turned to writing to fund her trips. Famed for discovering several ancient sites of profound archaeological interest, she made a name for herself publishing travel books and detailed journeys of her exploits. Now, let's get back to the graphics again. We talked about the differences between the PlayStation and Saturn version, but let's talk about them as a whole. Now, Tomb Raider came out during that period of time between the transition to 2D to 3D. And it was an awkward time. There are a lot of games, and I mean a lot of games that came out that if you play them now, they just don't hold up. Not only that, but they look absolutely horrible. It was an awkward period of time, and a lot of games really haven't stood the test of time. But I think it wasn't the graphics that Tomb Raider fans fell in love with, it was the gameplay. And it's simple, and it hasn't changed much over the years. Basically, you've got a level, you've got to get from, A to B, and you've got to basically, jump over obstacles, climb up walls, go over strange obstacles. It was addictive gameplay. At its core, it is some solid platform action, and the only other game that I think tops it is probably Mario 64, but that's a pretty difficult game to top. I mean, even now, I consider that to be the best platform game ever made. So, my final thoughts. If you look at gaming as a whole, and you look at the key moments, I do think this game is one of those moments. I mean, for one, it was one of the killer titles for the PlayStation in the early days. I mean, if you bought a PlayStation and you picked up, let's say, 5 games, I bet you one of them was going to have to be a Tomb Raider game. Not just that, but it's an important part of gaming history. And also, the Tomb Raider game was the very first successful game to movie franchise, I think personally. I mean, there were other games that became movies, but I do think this is the first one to do it justice, especially the first movie. The second one's interesting, but back to the game though. If you see it going cheap, give it a try. There's a lot to like here. The graphics have aged a bit, not very well, but if you look beneath the graphics, there's a very solid and incredible gameplay experience. So for that, I give this game the thumb approval. I want to thank you for watching. Until next time, see you later.